More women have a voice in our political system these days.
Right now, a record number of women are serving in Congress. Last year, South Dakota elected its first female governor. But women have been marking milestones in politics for decades. In tonight's Eye on KELOLAND, Kelly Volk remembers a Huron native who's remembered as a trailblazer.
Listen to the late Gladys Pyle talk about her family.
As I say, my father and mother were pioneers. My grandfather and grandmother were pioneers.
And it's no surprise, she too would become a pioneer. Gladys became the first woman elected to the South Dakota legislature. She was the first woman to be elected Secretary of State in South Dakota.
1927 to 1931.
The Republican was also the first woman elected to the U.S. Senate without being previously appointed. Years ago, she told KELOLAND News her colleagues treated her just like everyone else.
Of course, at first, they were more interested in color of neckties I enjoyed than in anything else, and whether I objected to smoking in the House chamber. And I explained to them that neither one of those things had anything to do with legislation.
She worked tirelessly with the Republican Party.
Rachel Farrell is the executive director of the Beadle County Museums, including the Pyle House Museum. The 98-year-old lived in this Huron home for most of her life.
It was kind of the Kool-Aid house on the block. When you were missing your children, you called Mrs. Pyle up because they were always hanging out here, reading magazines, discussing ideas.
Gladys comes from a family of leaders. In fact, her mother, Mamie Pyle, was a women's suffrage leader in the state.
She is the reason women got the right to vote 2 years before the national amendment went through.
Gladys's father, John, was the South Dakota Attorney General. Farrell calls the Pyles progressive.
Education was so important to this family.
And a part of South Dakota history that can't be forgotten.
They're, to an extent, a contemporary of Laura Ingalls Wilder, and what they've done is just as influential and important to our state.
Gladys died in 1989. While we may remember her most for being a woman of firsts,
and I didn't feel that it was any tremendously important thing, except that it did break the ice for many other women who will be coming afterwards, and other people too, not all women.
Farrell thinks Gladys would be pleased by the number of women in politics today.
I think she'd have some opinions on what they're doing, but I think she'd be very happy to see that we're becoming more diversified.
Even though Gladys may not be around today, we can still learn from her words.
The word feeble-minded literally describes a person who does not take part in politics and public affairs.
That's the true spirit of a pioneer.
And I couldn't very well be anything else.
With Eye on KELOLAND, I'm Kelly Volk.
And the Pyle House Museum is looking for more volunteers. To get involved, click the link in this story at KELOLAND.com. And don't forget to watch our Celebrating Women special on March 8th at 6:30 p.m. right here on KELO TV. We'll be highlighting Pyle and many other female leaders in South Dakota.